In the early 2000s, if you asked people who the most beautiful female TV host in the Chinese-speaking world was, chances are you would hear the same name again and again: Shen Xing. Mainland media even gave her an unofficial title of her own, calling her the most beautiful female host in China. And yet, only a few years later, that same country began calling her by two very different names: a wealthy manhunter and a professional mistress. Once a label like that is attached to a woman, it is almost impossible to tear it off. Today, I want to tell you the story of a woman who once stood at the very top, a flower in full bloom at the height of her fame, only to come crashing down in the most brutal way possible. Welcome back to Crime Confidential. Before we begin, please keep in mind that the material in this story has been collected and pieced together from many different sources. So if there are any inaccuracies or details that need correcting, I welcome your feedback. There is also one thing I want to make clear from the start. In today's story, the line between what was confirmed by courts and the press and what existed only as rumor is extremely thin. I will do my best to make it clear which is which. On September 25, 1978, in Nantong, Jiangsu Province, an ordinary intellectual family welcomed their first daughter. Her father was a civil servant, and her mother was a high school teacher. They named her Shen Xing, a name carrying a simple wish: that her life would shine as brightly as a star. The family was not wealthy, but there was never any shortage of books in the house. Her mother introduced her to literature and the written word from a very young age. In her spare time, her mother would cook a few traditional Jiangnan dishes, and little Shen Xing would sit beside the stove for what seemed like forever, watching closely and occasionally reaching in to help. The story of how she fell in love with cooking has been passed down through a rather charming anecdote. When she was in high school, she saw her classmates taking part-time jobs to earn money and insisted that she wanted to do the same. Her parents were worried about letting her work outside, so they came up with an arrangement of their own. She could work for the family. If she took care of the household meals and did the job properly, they would pay her a salary. She agreed immediately, went to a bookstore, bought a cookbook for everyday home cooking, and began teaching herself one page at a time. By the end of the summer, the book was stained and worn with grease, and she had learned to cook almost every dish in it. Her family could not stop praising her. What no one realized at the time was that this accidental little seed would, many years later, grow into something that would captivate audiences across the country. To be fair, Shen Xing was exactly the kind of daughter most parents dream of having. She was a strong student, socially skilled, articulate, and beautiful. She was tall and naturally stood out in a crowd. After taking the National College Entrance Examination, she entered the Chinese Language and Literature Department at Central China Normal University. She had barely arrived on campus before she was already being crowned the school beauty. But it would be unfair to dismiss her as nothing more than a pretty face. At almost every major university event, Shen Xing could be seen holding a microphone, often carrying much of the program by herself. On stage, she was calm, quick-thinking, and comfortable under pressure, and she brought her love of cooking with her to college. Inside the dormitory, she even set up a small makeshift kitchen of her own. While other students rushed to the cafeteria after class, Shen Xing and her roommates would head to the market instead. Before she'd even graduated, she was selected for a CCTV internship recruitment program that came directly to her university. At the time, the number of students who could secure an internship at CCTV while still in school was extremely small. That credential would later become her ticket into the television industry. After graduation, she did not stay in Beijing. Instead, she joined Zhuhai Television, and interestingly, she started behind the camera rather than in front of it. From the outside, it might have looked like a step backward. But anyone who has worked in television production knows that people behind the camera often develop a much sharper sense of what audiences actually want to see than those who have only ever stood in front of one. So when Shen Xing eventually moved into hosting a few years later, she adapted more smoothly than many of her colleagues and developed a style that felt distinctly her own. At that stage of her life, she was extremely confident. She would go to work without makeup and thought nothing of it. Out on the street, people really would turn their heads to look at her. But inside a television station packed with beautiful women, she was hardly unusual. For a long time, she was almost invisible. Still, she possessed one weapon that not everyone had. She was exceptionally good at dealing with people. She spent her own money to buy a refrigerator and placed it in the office so her co-workers could keep their drinks cold. Every day, she would also buy a fresh bouquet of flowers and arrange them on the desk. The scent of those flowers drifted through the entire floor, and everyone working nearby was jealous. Then she moved to Beijing and joined Beijing Television. After spending several years living alone in the capital, Shen Xing seemed to transform completely. Perhaps surrounded by so many beautiful people, she began to feel the pressure. She abandoned the plain, understated style she had once preferred. She learned how to coordinate outfits, had her teeth whitened, and learned how to apply makeup properly. Once the transformation was complete, she became the center of attention wherever she went. At Beijing Television, she hosted Charm Frontline. In later years, countless articles claimed that whenever Shen Xing appeared on screen, the program's ratings would noticeably rise. But this is where I have to be straightforward. Industry insiders later pointed out that much of that narrative came from promotional press releases designed to polish her image. Charm Frontline itself did not leave any particularly deep impression on Beijing audiences, and the program was not especially substantial in terms of content. Shen Xing's years at Beijing Television were a period of accumulation and preparation, not the period when she truly began to shine. What she was still missing was a platform big enough to launch her into another league. In 2004, that launchpad finally arrived. Phoenix TV reached out to Shen Xing, making her the second person to leave Beijing Television for Phoenix TV after Chen Xiaonan. That same year, she was also chosen as an image ambassador for CCTV's China's Charming Cities, Zhuhai. In other words, Shen Xing did not arrive at Phoenix TV as an unknown hoping for a break. She came in as a rising name with momentum already behind her. At Phoenix TV, she was given 2 programs. One was Entertainment Storm, which she co-hosted with Yuqi Linjia. The other was a show whose name would remain tied to her for nearly a decade, Beauty's Private Kitchen. The formula was remarkably simple. Put a beautiful female host in front of a camera and have her teach people how to cook. At the time, Chinese food television was still in its infancy. Most cooking shows were essentially instructional programs aimed at homemakers. Then Shen Xing appeared, and the audience expanded almost overnight. Men turned on the television to watch the beautiful host. Women tuned in for the recipes. And Shen Xing really could cook. She was not pretending for the camera. With an experienced production team behind her, every episode flowed smoothly from selecting ingredients to preparation and finally to the stove. It never felt as though she was standing there performing. It felt as though she was simply sharing a piece of her everyday life. Beauty's Private Kitchen became one of Phoenix TV's strongest ratings draws, while Shen Xing quickly became the beautiful, intelligent celebrity chef whose face the entire country seemed to recognize. From there, she began branching out everywhere. In 2006, she made a guest appearance in the film Call for Love, playing the final romantic interest of the character portrayed by Xu Jing and sharing the screen with names such as Ning Jing, Huang Shengyi, and Karina Lau. As a television host trying her hand at acting, her performance was naturally nothing extraordinary. But on the big screen, her looks and figure were undeniably striking, and she was also chosen as the female lead in the music video for the film's theme song. That same year, she joined in Light Media to host Entertainment Figures Weekly and Sports World, becoming one of the company's key on-screen personalities. In 2008, she added Music China Wind to her resume. This was the brightest period of Shen Xing's life. Before she had even turned 30, she had established herself across food, fashion, entertainment, and film. She was Phoenix TV's biggest on-screen star and had become a household name. Look back at online comments from that era, and you will see the same sentiment repeated over and over again. No woman on the Chinese language screen was more beautiful than Shen Xing. When it comes to her love life, though, this is where I have to be careful. Media reports at the time claimed that Shen Xing already had a husband. People in the industry described him as a young businessman, a wealthy and successful entrepreneur who supposedly gave her a BMW complete with a private driver to take her wherever she needed to go. They also claimed that after getting married, one of Shen Xing's greatest pleasures was cooking meals and simmering soup for her husband. It all sounded neat, complete, and believable. The problem was that Shen Xing herself repeatedly denied all of it on her blog. She said plainly that every rumor about her romantic life had been fabricated, that there was no so-called wealthy gentleman, and that there had never been any so-called 10-year marriage. Even in 2013, when another scandal erupted, she continued to deny that she had ever been married. So the name of the supposed husband that you often see repeated online is not something I am going to mention here, because it has never appeared in any source I would consider reliable. The most we can say is this: Shen Xing was repeatedly surrounded by rumors involving extremely wealthy men, while she repeatedly denied those rumors. The tension between those two realities would follow her for the rest of her life. And that is often how life works. The place where we are most likely to fall is usually the place where we believe we are standing most securely. In early 2009, a bombshell exploded across the entertainment industry. Paparazzi released a series of secretly taken photographs from a winter night. They showed a man and a tall woman entering an upscale apartment building in Beijing together, then leaving about 8 hours later. There was no mistaking the man's face. It was Feng Xiaogang. The pictures were blurry. The internet's imagination was not. Almost immediately, people identified the woman as Shen Xing. The scandal even got a name: Overnight Gate. For a time, it was the hottest story in Chinese entertainment. Feng Xiaogang hardly needed an introduction. He had just swept major awards with Assembly and was one of the most powerful figures in Chinese language cinema. His wife, Xu Fan, was herself a respected and widely recognized actress. What really mattered was how the two sides responded. Shen Xing spoke out immediately and insisted that the woman in the photographs was not her. She denied it emphatically and even swore that the accusation was false. Feng Xiaogang, meanwhile, offered only one remark: being a celebrity comes at a price. He neither confirmed anything nor explained himself. As a result, nearly all of the public backlash was directed at the woman. As for Xu Fan, years later, during a television interview, she delivered the remark that would become famous. In essence, she said that the man in her family was not exactly losing anything, so if some woman wanted to take advantage, then let her. On the surface, it sounded like a bold, confident wife standing by her husband. In reality, it worked like a perfectly aimed boomerang, pinning the other woman into the role of someone who had willingly offered herself. There were also stories claiming that Xu Fan had taken people with her to vandalize Shen Xing's home. But I want to be very clear about this. That story came from paparazzi reports, it was never confirmed, and Shen Xing denied it completely. I am mentioning it only because it was part of the media storm surrounding the scandal at the time, not because it was ever proven to be true. And the outcome was plain for everyone to see. Feng Xiaogang's marriage did not collapse. Feng Xiaogang's career suffered no meaningful damage. The following year, Aftershock became both a commercial and critical success. The awards kept coming, and the public moved on from the alleged affair surprisingly quickly. Shen Xing, on the other hand, lost much of the public's goodwill. Brands and business partners began approaching her one after another to terminate their contracts. A major part of her career came crashing down, and the position that had once seemed so secure at Phoenix TV began to shake beneath her. But there is one thing I need to correct here, because a lot of videos get this wrong, including some with millions of views. Her career was not wiped out in 2009. Beauty's Private Kitchen continued to air. In December 2010, She even received an award recognizing her contribution to lifestyle programming in an annual ranking. Then, in 2012, Phoenix TV gave her a new show called The Master's Study. It was an educational program, completely different from the food and entertainment content she was used to, and it demanded a much broader foundation in reading and culture. Shen Xing genuinely put in the work. She trained herself to read extensively. There is an old Chinese saying that when a person fills themselves with books and learning, that refinement naturally reveals itself in their presence. And during this period, Shen Xing clearly seemed more mature and substantial than before. She also wrote books, 2 about cooking, Beauty's Private Kitchen, and I Want to Be Your Beautiful Chef, as well as a collection of essays titled Liang Shenghua. She had, after all, graduated in Chinese literature. Writing came naturally to her. By 2013, she was still hosting 3 programs at Phoenix TV, and Beauty's Private Kitchen had been on the air continuously for 8 years. In other words, Overnight Gate damaged Shen Xing's reputation, but it did not kill her career. What ultimately destroyed her career would come 4 years later. The man's name was Li Jun. He was from Haixing in Hebei province and served as chairman of the Beijing-based Yazhijie Group. He had built his business beginning in the 1990s and had once been the largest authorized Audi dealer in North China. His wife was also a nationally recognizable figure, singer Chen Hong, best known for the song Come Home Often. And just to avoid any confusion, this was the singer Chen Hong, not actress Chen Hong, the wife of director Chen Kaige. At the time, singer Chen Hong also held a senior military rank in the Chinese Navy's performing arts troupe, equivalent to colonel. From the outside, Li Jun and Chen Hong looked like a model couple. He was a successful businessman, and she was a famous singer. But Li Jun himself apparently did not see things quite that way. He and Shen Xing met through business-related events. The way Li Jun pursued her followed a very familiar pattern: luxury cars, jewelry, designer handbags. According to Li Jun himself, he spent more than 10 million yuan on her and even bought her property in Hong Kong. And throughout this relationship, his wife in Beijing reportedly knew nothing about it. For a while, things continued. Then the relationship began to unravel. The more money Li Jun poured into Shen Xing, the more possessive he became. Shen Xing, meanwhile, wanted out. And when Li Jun finally realized that he was not the only man in her life, he lost control. What happened next took place in the early hours of August 22, 2013, according to testimony later given in court. Shen Xing was asleep in her apartment on Peony Road in Kowloon Tong, Hong Kong. That night, another man was also staying inside the apartment. At around 5 in the morning, someone began knocking on the door. Not a few knocks and then silence. The knocking continued for nearly an hour. Shen Xing believed it was Li Jun, and she did not want to see him, so she stayed quiet and refused to answer. After knocking for an hour with no response, the man outside climbed over a wall nearly 10 feet high, made his way onto the second-floor terrace, and used a retractable baton to smash through a glass door. Within moments, all 3 of them were fighting inside the apartment. Building security saw what was happening through the internal surveillance system and called the police. When officers arrived, they arrested both Li Jun and his driver. Shen Xing suffered injuries to her arms and legs and had to be taken to the hospital. And as Li Jun was being escorted away from the scene, he turned toward the cameras and shouted the sentence that would soon spread across China. "She spent more than 10 million of my money." The moment the story broke, it became one of the biggest entertainment scandals in Hong Kong and arguably across China. What happened next almost felt like a massive social experiment unfolding in real time. First came the scramble among wealthy businessmen. The second man who had been inside Shen Xing's apartment that night was described as a wealthy businessman surnamed Wu. Suddenly, one listed company boss after another with the surname Wu began stepping forward to make it clear that he was not the man in question. Wu Hai, the owner of the Orange Crystal Hotel chain, was the first to respond, insisting that he had been in Beijing that day. Soon afterward came Wu Zheng, chairman of Sun Media and husband of television host Yang Lan, who announced that he had reported the matter to the police. Yang Lan also defended her husband on Weibo, pointing out that there were plenty of people in China with the surname Wu and that people should not jump to conclusions. She emphasized that she and her husband had spent those days busy from morning until night hosting the producer of the Spider-Man films. At almost the same time, Wu Changjiang, general manager of NVC Lighting, also went online to explain that yes, his surname really was Wu, yes, his company really was listed in Hong Kong, and yes, his age roughly matched the description. But he insisted that he did not know any celebrities and was not even a fan of celebrities. By August 25th, the person who had started the rumor about Wu Zheng was forced to post a public apology on Weibo, admitting that the claim had been based on hearsay and had been spread without any verification. Wu Zheng and Yang Lan accepted the apology. As for the true identity of the man who was inside Shen Xing's apartment that night, there has never been any official confirmation. At the time, Hong Kong newspaper The Standard named one person, Wu Jian, chairman of Runbang Heavy Industry. The report said that Wu Jian and Li Jun had once attended the same CEO class at Chung Kong Graduate School of Business, and that Li Jun himself had introduced Shen Xing to him. But that very evening, Runbang issued a statement denying the report and calling it a false rumor. On August 25th, Shen Xing responded with a 4-point statement of her own. She said Li Jun was not her former boyfriend. The so-called wealthy businessman surnamed Wu was completely baseless. Every report about her romantic life was false, and all of her money came from years of work and investment. She insisted that she had no financial ties or arrangements with anyone. The public was not convinced. Hong Kong media quickly began looking into the properties registered under Shen Xing's name, questioning how a television host's income, even combined with book royalties, could have been enough to afford them. And even today, that question has never received an answer persuasive enough to satisfy both sides. But what happened to Li Jun? This is the part that I think will surprise a lot of you. He was charged with 3 offenses: assault causing bodily harm, possession of an offensive weapon, and criminal damage. He was released on bail of 1.2 million Hong Kong dollars. But in December 2013, when the case came before Kowloon City Court, Li Jun firmly pleaded not guilty. After negotiations between the prosecution and the defense, the two sides reached an agreement. Li Jun would admit the basic facts of what had happened, while the prosecution would offer no evidence on all 3 charges. In effect, the prosecution dropped all 3 charges. And the reason was simple. Shen Xing did not appear in court to testify. The final outcome was this. Li Jun signed a personal bond of 3,000 Hong Kong dollars, agreeing to keep the peace and be of good behavior for 24 months, and promising not to threaten anyone or damage anyone else's property. The man who had climbed over a wall, smashed through a glass door, and fought with people inside the apartment ultimately walked out of court without a criminal conviction. Shen Xing, however, pursued the matter through the civil courts. She applied to the High Court of Hong Kong for an injunction, accusing Li Jun of repeatedly threatening, assaulting, and harassing her. The court granted the order and barred him from approaching her. In March 2014, Chen Hong and Li Jun officially divorced. According to her representative, the separation was peaceful. There was no dispute over property, and their son remained in his mother's care. The same representative also said that Chen Hong had been completely kept in the dark throughout the affair and only learned that her husband had been unfaithful when she read the news about the Hong Kong incident. Before the divorce, Li Jun reportedly tried to win her back, even breaking down in tears and saying with regret that he had brought all of it upon himself. But that was not the end of their story. In 2015, Li Jun sued Chen Hong over a share transfer agreement that had been signed before their divorce. At the same time, he posted a lengthy article online accusing his former wife of all kinds of wrongdoing. Their legal battle continued for years and had nothing more to do with Shen Xing. But it revealed something about Li Jun. He was not a man who ever accepted defeat when a relationship came to an end. For Shen Xing, this scandal hit far harder than Overnight Gate had 4 years earlier. Internet users branded her a longtime mistress, then added another label that was even more vicious: a wealthy man hunter. Together, those two labels became a death sentence for her mainstream television career. This time, she really did disappear from television, and no major platform was willing to take a chance on a name that had become almost socially radioactive. In the years that followed, she still tried to get back on her feet. In 2015, there were reports that she was dating Xie Hui, a former Chinese national team player who would later become a well-known coach in Chinese professional soccer. But under the weight of public scrutiny, that relationship also faded quickly. She tried to make a comeback through food programming. She experimented with online content as web-based shows began exploding in popularity. None of it made much of an impact. At one point, she shifted almost entirely to producing food content on social media, but those videos received only a few hundred likes, sometimes a little over 1,000. For someone who had once been one of the most recognizable faces in China, those numbers said everything. Eventually, Shen Xing moved to Hong Kong for good. And for nearly a decade, she fell almost completely silent. In 2026, when Shen Xing finally began posting a series of everyday photos on her personal account after years of silence, people were stunned to discover something almost no one had known. She had quietly been raising a child as a single mother for 6 years. I should say up front that most of what follows comes from Chinese online media, rather than any formal interview with Shen Xing herself, so it is best to take these details with a degree of caution. According to those reports, she had been living an extremely quiet life in Hong Kong. Some people claim to have spotted her at local markets with no makeup, her hair hastily tied back, wearing an inexpensive sweater and carrying a worn cloth bag, crouching beside a stall and bargaining over every last dollar while a little girl tugged at the hem of her sweater. She reportedly cooked all 3 meals for her daughter herself, took her to parks and exhibitions, and began teaching her to read from an early age. The home they lived in was said to be nothing like some luxurious ocean view apartment. There were also reports that Shen Xing turned down reality television offers that wanted to build a show around her life as a single mother, and even rejected lucrative advertising deals for mother and child products. Her reason, according to those accounts, was simple. Being around cameras teaches children how to perform, and she did not want her daughter growing up learning how to please other people. And when it came to protecting her daughter, Shen Xing drew an almost absolute line. She never showed the child's face directly. She never revealed her name. She never mentioned which school she attended. But the more she tried to protect those details, the more curious people became. Chinese social media produced endless theories about the child's father. Some said he was a wealthy businessman. Others claimed he worked in the entertainment industry. Still others insisted he was a foreigner. Through all those years, Shen Xing never publicly disclosed her marital status. No one knew whether she had remarried. No one knew who the father of her daughter was. Then one day, beneath the kind of completely ordinary post any mother might share, someone left a question. Who exactly is the girl's father? On the surface, it sounded like nothing more than a casual question. But underneath it, every word carried a blade. The implication was that Shen Xing's past was dirty, that her daughter's origins were somehow questionable, and that Shen Xing did not deserve to live in peace. This time, she did not deny anything. She did not explain herself. She did not post another 4-point statement like she had in 2013. She answered with a single sentence. What does it have to do with you? That was it. Short. Sharp. Not a single word offered in concession to the public's curiosity. And I think that one sentence says more than all the statements Shen Xing ever wrote before it. The woman of 2009 and 2013 still felt compelled to explain herself. She still felt the need to swear that accusations were false, to defend herself, to prove that she was innocent. The woman she is today has simply stopped doing that. She no longer owes anyone an explanation. Perhaps that is because what she is protecting now is different. Her daughter is reaching an age when she may soon be able to read those comments for herself. And if one day at school, that child hears someone make a cruel remark about her mother, how much would that hurt the woman who spent all these years trying to shield her? Looking back at nearly half of Shen Xing's life, it once seemed as though she had been handed every advantage a person could ask for. Beauty, education, talent, fame, opportunity. She had almost everything. And yet whenever it came to relationships, something went wrong. Wrong badly enough to burn down a television career that had once seemed unstoppable. She had been dealt one of the best hands imaginable, only to watch it all fall apart. But I want you to look closely at how differently that price was paid by the people in this story. After Overnight Gate, Feng Xiaogang offered little more than one sentence, that being a celebrity comes at a price, and then went right back to being an A-list director. He continued making blockbuster films, he continued winning, and he continued appearing alongside his wife as part of a seemingly ideal couple. Li Jun, the man who climbed over a wall, smashed through a glass door, and fought with people inside a home at 5 a.m, walked out of a Hong Kong courtroom with nothing more than a 3,000 Hong Kong dollar bond and no criminal conviction. Later, he still had the power and resources to take his former wife to court and spend years posting accusations and documents about her online. And then, there was the woman at the center of it all. The woman who sought protection from a Hong Kong court after accusing that same man of repeatedly threatening, assaulting, and harassing her, and who was ultimately granted an injunction keeping him away. 13 years later, she was still being asked who the father of her child was. The same scandal can follow one person for a few months and another for the rest of their life. And somehow, when the person under that microscope is a woman, the road back to an ordinary, peaceful life can feel permanently closed. That is where I am going to leave Shen Xing's story. But in that glittering world of fame and celebrity, she was not the only woman whose entire career was destroyed by a single secretly taken photograph. There is another case waiting for you on the screen right now, and I think you'll want to watch that one next. Before you go, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel.